Hello, JRubyFX is a new Ruby library for working with the JavaFX GUI toolkit, and it's really good. Um, I want to show you how to get started with it, get it set up, a few tools I think you're going to want that will make working with it a little more comfortable, and then a little bit of example code and a little bit about using those tools just to get you going. I'll probably divide this up into a few parts. So to get started, first of all, you're going to need a recent install of the JDK. The JDK, that's the Java Development Kit. And you're going to want version 7 and one of the recent updates of that. I'm not sure what update it is, after which you would need to upgrade. It tells on the JRubyFX GitHub site, which I'll show you in a minute. But it really doesn't matter too much, because what I would recommend you do is go ahead and get the JDK 8 early access release. And even if you don't, even if you do stick with the Java 7, you should be keeping up to date with the updates and have the recent updates installed, because there's a lot of security fixes that come with those. So take care of that. But what I would recommend doing, and what I've done, is gone ahead and gotten the early access release for JDK 8, which is due out sometime this year, and is will give you access to all the tools that JavaFX and especially JRubyFX can provide to you. It can do a lot of really awesome things, and to really take complete advantage of that, you need JDK 8. And the only way to get that as of right now is to get the early access release, which is here. I'll put the links to these in the description. To get started, you're going to need to accept the license agreement. Anything you download from Oracle is almost always going to have a license agreement attached to it that you have to accept. Then you're going to come down and find your platform, runtime. I'll go ahead and tell you, I am currently using Windows, but I'm normally on Ubuntu, and so I'm a little bit out of place here, and everything's just a little awkward. I've run through this a few times now, and I hopefully will be won't run into any problems, but just a fair warning, I'm not used to working on Windows. I had some problems with my microphone on Ubuntu and could not get that solved, so I'm gonna do this on Windows for right now and go ahead with it. So once you've got that installed, the next thing you're going to need is JRuby. If you don't have JRuby already, you should, because it's awesome. But so come to JRuby. They've got this nice JRuby Get Started right here. It's pretty simple. So you can just go directly to the downloads here too. And they've got all the different ones. They've got binaries, Windows installers, Mac OS installers. They've got zipped up with the source code. They have the jar where you can run it from the jar. But what you're going to want is to install it so it'll be in your system and you can use it. The next thing, that's quite a lot of steps, but if you're watching this video, you probably already have the first two anyways. So really, this is where you would jump in for most of you, I would assume. JRubyFX, this is their repo right here, and so you would come here, and there's a couple ways you can get it. One, it's a gem, so you can do gem install JRubyFX, but I'm going to tell you that what you're going to want to do is clone the repo and install it that way, because it is a very young library and it's being updated all the time. As you can see, there's pull requests and commits going in constantly, and to get the latest bug fixes, the latest features, and all of the good stuff, you're going to want to go ahead and grab it from GitHub. So you'll just copy that link, get that installed. You'll come into your terminal. This is PowerShell, and this is a pretty slick version of PowerShell that you get when you download GitHub's Windows application, which one thing I was very impressed with was GitHub's Windows application. It's pretty slick. There's also Git Bash, and I really like Bash. It's what I'm used to, but in fact, the tiny differences between Git Bash on Windows or Cygwin or something like that, and using Bash in Ubuntu, the little differences trip me up so much that it's easier for me to remember I'm in Windows if I stick with something like CMD or PowerShell. So here I am. So you're going to take that URL, you're going to come to your terminal and go to wherever you clone repos to. I keep a special directory on. I've just mimicked my directory structure here. Git and then community, and that's where things that I'm going to fork, or things that I'm cloning that I'm going to be expecting to come back in and work with Git tools to update and fetch updates and things like that, and pull in recent commits and stuff like that so that I can keep up to date. I keep those here, and so then you're going to do git clone and paste. I remembered this time that Control V didn't work. And why did I hit enter when I know I already have that? So, but you will get a nice copy of the JRubyFX library pulled down from GitHub for you and put into a JRubyFX directory. So then you'll change into that directory, and if you see here, that is doing essentially what I have my Bash profile set up to do, which is highlighting using some different colors and stuff, and letting me know what branch of the Git repo I'm in, and that comes automatically with that. So if you're not using that already and you're on Windows, check it out. Anyways, once you have that, you can come here to where it says samples and grab this line of code, rake run main script, etc., and copy that, and you'll come in here. I always go ahead and prefix stuff like that with the JRuby-S, even though right now JRuby is the only Ruby on the system. I still do that just as a good habit. So then I'm going to paste that in, and what that'll do is just go ahead and run this demo application from the samples, and there's a lot of great sample apps in there, and you can learn a lot from checking out that code. It'll go ahead and run it using what's in the current library that you're in, the current JRubyFX library that you've just downloaded, and not depending on having a gem installed. It's a good way to test that everything's going to work fine on your system before you try to install a gem and get a halfway into it and then something borks and it doesn't work out. And it is also a good way to test your changes when if you decide to work on the JRubyFX library itself and want to contribute back, or if you need to try to fix a bug. That's a good way to run those changes. So once you've done that and you're happy that everything's fine, you just JRuby -s rake install, and that will install it as a gem into JRuby, and you'll be good to go. Okay, you've got that, and you could stop there, but there are some tools that I think you're really going to want. The first of those is JavaFX Scene Builder. It's a tool Oracle developed along with JavaFX, and what it is, it's a visual editor for editing FXML documents, and it lets you design the UI for JavaFX applications in this visual editor using drag and drop and visual editing tools, and then it will create an FXML document that JavaFX can then use to produce that UI. And you're probably groaning right now, and I did when I first heard about it too, because the first thing that always sprang to mind when I heard the word visual editor is the what you see is what you get HTML editors of the 90s, and those were horrible. And so I understand if you are skeptical, but take my word for it, give it a try. They have learned a lot from the mistakes of the past, and it makes for a very efficient workflow that ends up with a very clean cut between your views, which will be written in FXML, and your controllers, which you'll write in Ruby code. And I find that a very clean way to work, the separation of concerns, and I think if you'll give it a try, you'll be really happy you did. Something I'm going to back up a second and show you really quick is that if you come into JRubyFX's wiki, there is a really nice getting started guide. And in the getting started guide, he talks about Scene Builder and FXML. And one of the things that he mentions is that there are some things with FXML that you can only do by hand, such as if you've already created your FXML document and then you want to change the root node of that document, you would have to go into it and do that by hand. And once you've learned FXML, you certainly can make tweaks to it by hand, or even write it by hand if you desired, but it's a little bit verbose, not unesthetically so, but it's more than what I want to write by hand. If I'm going to write it by hand, I'll just code the whole thing in Ruby, and use JRubyFX's DSLs. But to go in and make tweaks and changes once I've got the bulk of the work done in Scene Builder, that's great. and I think you will find that you'll easily do 80% of your UI design in Scene Builder, and then go in and make some tweaks, maybe even 95%, and then make some minor adjustments by hand if necessary. So to get started with Scene Builder, you'll come to this page. Again, I'll link that in the description, and it's Oracle again, so you'll have to accept their license agreement. Now this is the developer preview for JavaFX Scene Builder 1.1, and the reason I'm showing you that is because, like I mentioned before, I am normally using Ubuntu, and when 1.0 was out, they only have Windows and OS X installers. They didn't have a Linux installer at all, and now they've got Linux bundles, and then they've also got these DB bundles that if you're on Debian or Ubuntu, you can install very easily with dpackage or with the Software Center, however you prefer to do it, and it just makes that easier. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the developer preview for this one. If you want to install the older 1.0, there's not that much difference between the two. I don't know when they're scheduled to release the next version of this, or are planning to, but I haven't encountered any problems or heard of anybody encountering any problems or bugs with 1.1, and so I can certainly recommend it. So I'll link to that as well. And finally, the last thing I'm going to show you is a plugin for Sublime Text. Sublime JRubyFX ML is what the repo's called in Sublime's package manager, and what you'll see when you use it, it's just JRubyFX. But full disclosure, I created this plugin. Sublime Text, you can see the icon down here, is my editor of choice. And actually, when I started working with JRubyFX, I was having trouble finding an editor or an IDE solution that gave me everything I wanted. I was willing to try NetBeans or IntelliJ, but they couldn't quite do what I wanted them to do. So I went back to Sublime Text, and I just made a plugin that would do what I wanted it to do. So I've got some basic syntax highlighting for FXML. I have some snippets and completions for the JRubyFX DSL. I have commands to run, build, and build native installers for JRubyFX projects. You can create a new JRubyFX project with a proper folder structure. And what that does is makes it so that you can use the other build tools and things, and it sets up the right folder structures with the right conventions in place so that those will work. In the to-dos at the bottom, something I plan to do eventually, but I would love a pull request, is to make those builds configurable, so you can just select all the directories you want, and it'll plug those into the command it sends to the build tools. But I haven't gotten to that yet. So for now, it's set up by convention, and the easiest way to do that is just to create your JRubyFX project using the plugin, and then you can use the plugin to use the build tools, and you can do all that without leaving Sublime. There's let's see, I said FXML syntax highlighting. You can generate new FXML templates. You and select what you want your root node to be for the start of those. You can use the JRubyFX generator to generate Ruby code from your FXML if you've got a complex FXML document, and I'll show you all this in the next part of the video. The next parts of the video, you'll get to see this in action. So anyways, how do you get this? Well, if you're using Sublime Text already, you know about Sublime Package Control, the package manager for Sublime Text. It makes installing plugins incredibly easy. And so what you want to do is come here. I'll link to this too. Click install. It gives you these simple instructions. You just copy these. You open up Sublime Text and you paste those. You hit Control and it's the backtick mark, and that will open up the Python console, and you paste that command in and it will install package control. I don't think anybody that uses Sublime Text doesn't use package control. I can't imagine not using it. So if you're new to Sublime, don't be shy about installing package control. It will give you access to hundreds, or maybe at this point thousands, of plugins that will let you do pretty much anything you want Sublime Text to do. So on this page you can type in JRubyFX and bring up this plugin, but you don't really need this page. It's great for finding out about new plugins and searching for things so that you can then easily get to the GitHub page and read about it, because you don't want to just install a bunch of plugins that you don't know what they are and what they're going to do. You can end up with a lot of stuff that you don't want that way. But what you do once you have the package manager installed, you come into Sublime Text. Let me magnify that. You hit Control-Shift-P for the command palette, and the command palette in Sublime Text gives you access to all kinds of stuff and lets you fuzzy search for it by just typing. So normally what I would do is just start to type install, and before I finish the word it would bring it up. But to show you how the fuzzy search works, if you're not familiar with that term, I can type PA for package. It'll hit the PA from it. C-O-I. So PA from package, CO from control, and I from install. And because that's the only thing that matches those letters in that order, it comes up first in the list, and then I can just hit enter, and it'll bring up a list of all the available repositories. Again, fuzzy searching JRubyFX, and you just hit enter to install. Alright, in the next part of the video I'm going to demonstrate a little JRubyFX code and show you a bit about how these tools work, and a little bit of my workflow. Although, like I mentioned, I'm not usually on Windows, so my workflow is going to seem a little stilted and awkward, and that's because it feels that way. And I'm not knocking Windows, but I'm just not used to it. So I'm going to stop the video here for now, and I'll see you in the next part.